The Champions League trophy is sitting in Budapest. 4 days from now, either Arsenal or Paris Saint-Germain will lift it. But right now, inside the PSG training ground, two players who were considered serious doubts for Saturday just walked back onto the grass. Achraf Hakimi, Ousmane Dembele, both returned to full group training today. Both are pushing Luis Enrique to start them. Both could be on that pitch facing Arsenal in less than 100 hours. At the same exact moment, Kvaratskhelia is sitting in front of a camera telling the world that PSG can beat anyone. And he has the numbers to back it up. 6 goals in 6 Champions League knockout games. That is not luck. That is a player built for this exact stage. And yet Arsenal are not flinching. Noni Madueke, who left the field clutching his thigh just days ago, is expected to be fit. Martin Zubimendi is telling anyone who will listen that he is ready to go. Declan Rice, who was filmed visibly devastated by West Ham's relegation just 24 hours ago, has already redirected his focus and said one thing clearly: full focus on PSG. The final has not kicked off yet, but it has already started. Welcome to Melissa, Arsenal analyst. Let us break this all down. Before we go deep into the detail, let me make one thing absolutely clear. What Arsenal are attempting this Saturday is not just historic for this squad. It is historic for the entire club. Patrick Vieira, one of the greatest players to ever wear the Arsenal shirt, a man who knows what winning feels like, has stated clearly that if Arsenal win the Champions League, it will be the biggest achievement in the club's history. Bigger than the Invincibles, bigger than any title before it. That is the weight of Saturday. That is what is sitting on the shoulders of every single Arsenal player right now. And on the other side, Paris Saint-Germain are the reigning Champions League holders. They are chasing something only Real Madrid have ever achieved in the Champions League era, defending the title. So both clubs are playing for history. Both clubs understand exactly what is at stake. Now let us get into everything. If you want the full picture on everything happening around Arsenal right now, not just the headlines, but the real analysis behind the stories, then hit that subscribe button right now. This channel breaks it all down for you every single day. Hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and let us get into it. The Champions League trophy and the question everyone is asking. The official UEFA Champions League account posted a photograph today that stopped a lot of people in their tracks. It was a close-up image of the Champions League trophy itself with the list of winning clubs engraved on it. You could see names going back through history: Hamburg, Steaua Bucharest, Barcelona, Ajax, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Porto, Milan, Inter Milan, Liverpool, and then at the very bottom, Paris Saint-Germain, listed as the 2025 champions. The post carried just 3 words, a trophy emoji, and then who is next, followed by the hashtag UCL final. Now, on the surface, this looks like a simple social media post, but think about what it actually represents. The UEFA Champions League official account is essentially presenting the question to the entire football world. 2 clubs are 4 days away from answering it. Arsenal have never had their name on that trophy. Paris Saint-Germain just had theirs engraved 12 months ago. The reality is this: that photograph is a reminder of what is missing from Arsenal's entire history. The club has won the Intercities Fairs Cup in 1970 and the Cup Winners' Cup in 1994, but the European Cup, the big one, the trophy every club in the world dreams of, has never belonged to Arsenal. Saturday is the opportunity to change that forever. PSG injury news. Hakimi and Dembele return to training. Now, this is significant from a tactical standpoint, and Arsenal fans need to pay close attention here. Arsenal Radar reported that both Achraf Hakimi and Ousmane Dembele have returned to group training with Paris Saint-Germain. This happened on Tuesday, 4 days before the final in Budapest. Hakimi had been dealing with a thigh issue, while Dembele had been managing a calf problem. Both players are now pushing to be included in Luis Enrique's starting lineup. Let me give you my analysis on this. If both Hakimi and Dembele are fit and available for Saturday, Arsenal's defensive setup faces a very different challenge than if either of those players had been ruled out. Hakimi on the right side of PSG's system is a constant attacking threat. His ability to combine with the forwards and arrive late into dangerous areas creates real problems for any left side. And Dembele, when fit, is one of the most direct and unpredictable wide players in European football right now. The fact that they resume training 4 days before the final does not guarantee they start. Luis Enrique will need to assess their physical condition carefully. Coming back from a thigh or calf issue and going straight into a Champions League final carries obvious risk for any manager, but both players pushing for inclusion tells you the determination is there. For Arsenal, the preparation now has to account for the possibility of facing both of these players. That is the practical reality. Kvaratskhelia sends his message. Liquid Gooner reported on what Kvaratskhelia said ahead of the final, and the Georgian winger was very clear about PSG's approach and belief. He stated that Paris Saint-Germain know that if they fight for each other and play their own brand of football, they can beat anyone. He talked about the team's unity, their togetherness, and the belief that runs through the squad. He also reflected on his own development as a player, saying that early in his career he was more of an individual, but that he quickly realised you are nothing without your team. And then the number that matters. Kvaratskhelia has scored 6 goals in his last 6 Champions League knockout stage appearances. Let me put that in perspective for you. 6 goals in 6 knockout games. That is not a hot streak. That is a player operating at an elite, consistent level at the highest stage in club football. That is the kind of form that wins finals. The question Liquid Gooner correctly posed is this: will Arsenal allow PSG to play their game on Saturday? And this is where Arteta's work becomes critical. We know Arsenal have conceded just 6 goals in the entire Champions League campaign this season. 6 goals across all their matches in Europe. That defensive discipline is remarkable. But Kvaratskhelia's form means Arsenal cannot afford even one moment of disorganisation on that left side. The analysis here is straightforward. PSG believe in themselves deeply, and they have the evidence to justify that belief. Arsenal's job is not to be intimidated by that. It is to impose their own structure and make PSG play a game they are not comfortable with. What Patrick Vieira said and why it matters. Sky Sports Premier League reported on what Patrick Vieira said ahead of the final, and his words carry a weight that deserves serious attention. Vieira stated plainly that if Arsenal win the Champions League, it will be the biggest achievement for Arsenal Football Club. He went further, saying this team would be classed as more successful than the Invincibles. Now, Vieira was the captain of the Invincibles. He was the heartbeat of that unbeaten season. He knows better than almost anyone what that achievement meant, and he is saying that winning Saturday would surpass it. This tells us something very important about the moment Arsenal are in. The Premier League title after 22 years is already historic on its own. But adding the Champions League to it would create a legacy that no Arsenal team has ever achieved. That is not me adding drama. That is what one of the most respected figures in Arsenal's history is saying out loud, on camera, to Sky Sports. The implication is clear. Arteta's team has a chance to do something that has never been done before at this football club. Morgan Rogers and the summer transfer plans. Fan Arsenal team reported that Arsenal are ready to step up their pursuit of Aston Villa attacker Morgan Rogers. The 23-year-old is valued at around £80 million by Aston Villa, and it is being said that Mikel Arteta is personally leading the interest. Preliminary talks with the players' advisors have already taken place. I want to be very clear here. This is a rumour at this stage. There is no completed deal. There is no confirmed transfer. What exists is Arsenal's interest, Arteta's personal involvement in that interest, and preliminary conversations with the players' representatives. But here is what makes this significant, even as a rumour. The fact that Arteta himself is reportedly leading the pursuit tells you something about how much the manager values this player and what role he sees him playing in the squad. At 23 years old, Rodgers has youth on his side. And at £80 million, Aston Villa are not going to let him go easily. This one is worth watching closely as the summer develops. But for now, treat it as what it is. A rumour with early movement behind it. Gary Neville and the Arsenal shirt. Gooner Chris posted a moment that the football world has been talking about all day. Gary Neville, the former Manchester United player, the man who spent his entire career as one of Arsenal's fiercest rivals, was photographed sitting at a table with Mikel Arteta, Ian Wright, and another individual. On the table in front of them sat the Premier League trophy, and Neville was holding an Arsenal shirt with his name and the number 2 on the back. The post described it as Gary Neville officially becoming a Gooner. Now, I am going to give you the honest analysis here. This is clearly a fun moment, a light-hearted exchange, and nobody is suggesting Gary Neville has genuinely changed his allegiances. But the symbolism of it is interesting. Arsenal winning the title has created a cultural moment that has drawn in even their former enemies, at least for a photograph. It is a sign of the moment Arsenal are in. Even the most committed rivals cannot ignore what this team has achieved. Martin Zubimendi and the question of the starting 11. Arsenal News reported on what Martin Zubimendi said about his chances of starting the Champions League final. And his words were honest, measured, and showed exactly the kind of mentality you want in a squad player heading into the biggest game of the season. Zubimendi said he always sees himself playing, but that what actually happens is another matter. He acknowledged that he has spent more time on the bench recently, but insisted he remains mentally ready for the biggest game in Europe. He said, and these are his words, "I am ready to go out and play." He also spoke openly about how physically demanding his first Premier League season has been. He called it a very demanding long season. He said he has made efforts he has never made before in his career and that it has taken its toll. But then he added something important. He said he thinks he's back to normal now. My analysis on this. Zubimendi's honesty is refreshing. He is not pretending he is definitely starting. He is not causing disruption. He is simply saying he is ready if called upon. That is the behaviour of a professional who understands his role and respects the competition within the squad. For Arsenal, having a player of his quality ready to step in off the bench or from the start is a genuine advantage. His composure in central midfield could be exactly what Arsenal need if the game gets tight in Budapest. Fabio Vieira and the Hamburger SV situation. Transfer journalist Florian Plettenberg reported that Hamburger SV are doing everything behind the scenes to keep Fabio Vieira. The German club has reportedly told Vieira in personal conversations that they want to build the team around him. Vieira, who has been on loan at Hamburger SV, is reportedly open to staying. The situation now depends on Hamburger SV reaching an agreement with Arsenal. Let me be clear again about the status here. This is not a completed transfer. This is Hamburger SV working to make a deal happen and talks between the clubs having started. Vieira's openness to staying is noted, but nothing is confirmed. The interesting detail here is the phrase build the team around him. That tells you how highly Hamburger SV rate Vieira as a player. For Arsenal, the decision will come down to what value Vieira has within Arteta's long-term plans versus what a permanent sale would bring in financially and structurally. This is a situation that will develop over the summer. Keep watching it. Pep Guardiola and the Arteta narrative. A post from Sire Chitouni circulated widely today, claiming that sources close to Pep Guardiola felt he decided to leave the Premier League because he was worried that Mikel Arteta would continue to topple him going forward. The post described Guardiola as having grown increasingly frustrated with how strong Arteta's team has become, having finished below Arsenal for 2 consecutive seasons. I want to handle this carefully and responsibly. This claim comes from a social media account and is described as coming from sources close to Guardiola. It is not a confirmed statement from Guardiola himself, and it is not verified reporting from an established journalist. What I can say based on the facts presented is this. Arsenal did finish above Manchester City in the Premier League for 2 consecutive seasons. That is stated. The rest of the narrative around Guardiola's motivations for leaving remains in the category of social media speculation, and I will not present it as confirmed fact. What is confirmed and undeniable is that Arsenal under Arteta have become the dominant force in English football. That is the reality. Whatever Guardiola's reasons were for leaving, Arsenal's rise is real and documented. No congratulations from the Premier League. Footyism posted an observation that has generated a lot of conversation online. 1 week after Arsenal won the Premier League title for the first time in 22 years, not a single one of the other 19 Premier League clubs publicly congratulated them on social media. The post described this as absolutely shocking and asked whether jealousy could be the explanation. My analysis. This is a notable social dynamic. Whether it reflects genuine jealousy, rivalry culture, or simply clubs choosing to stay silent, the fact that it has been widely noticed and discussed says something about the scale of Arsenal's achievement. Winning the Premier League after 22 years is not a small story. It is a landmark moment in English football. The silence from rival clubs in that context is at the very least unusual, and it tells you how much of a seismic shift Arsenal's title represents within the Premier League landscape. Josh Kroenke speaks on the summer and the future. Arsenal owner Josh Kroenke gave 2 notable sets of comments that were reported by Arsenal Buzz. In the first set, Kroenke made clear that the business never stops. He acknowledged that other teams are already working to strengthen and come for Arsenal next season. He said the club has already had conversations about areas where they believe they can improve, both on and off the pitch. He also noted that the upcoming summer will be complicated by the World Cup, but expressed comfort with the fact that the tournament is being held in the United States, meaning he will not need to travel far. In the second set of comments, Kroenke reflected on the philosophy behind building a winning team. He said winning at the highest level is a process and not something you can simply switch on. He spoke about the importance of putting a plan together over a number of years, being aware of the competition around you, and allowing the group to grow together, including allowing them to fail at times. He drew a direct parallel with his experience in American sports, where near misses eventually gave way to success. He said the Arsenal group really took that lesson to heart. My analysis on these comments. What Kroenke is communicating is continuity and ambition. He is not resting. He is not treating the title as the end point. He is already focused on what comes next. The acknowledgement that other clubs are strengthening is realistic and shows an awareness that Arsenal cannot afford to stand still. The reference to the summer conversations tells you planning is already underway. And the philosophical reflection on patience and process is a message to the wider world that this is not a one-season wonder. This is a project with foundations. Ebereki Ezi on what this title means. Two posts covered Ebereki Eze's reaction to winning the Premier League, and his words were genuinely moving. Eze said he does not think the fact that Arsenal won the Premier League is going to settle in for a little while. He described it as a massive blessing and said he is grateful to God just to have had the opportunity to play in such competitions and to run that race. He called it something he will not get over for a long time. He also spoke about the journey. He talked about the ups and downs, the media pressure, and all the noise that surrounds a title race. He said at the end of it all, it just matters who won. And he spoke with pride about the fact that Arsenal blocked out so much noise and attention to achieve what they did. He described that as making it really special. My analysis. Eze's words are important because they give you the emotional reality of what this title meant from inside the dressing room. This was not a comfortable, expected victory. It was earned through a long, demanding season, through pressure and scrutiny, and through moments of doubt. The fact that players are still processing it emotionally tells you how significant it truly was. That level of meaning does not fade quickly, and it is exactly that kind of emotional investment that could fuel Arsenal through Saturday's final. Noni Madueke, confidence and fitness. Two separate pieces of information have emerged about Noni Madueke today, and both matter going into Saturday. The first is the fitness update. The Athletic reported that Madueke avoided a serious injury during Arsenal's final Premier League match against Crystal Palace. He scored the winning goal in that 2-1 victory at Selhurst Park, but was substituted before the end of the match, clutching the back of his left thigh. That was the concern. However, it is now expected that he will be fit for the Champions League final in Budapest. That is good news for Arsenal. The second piece is about mentality. Fabrizio Romano reported a quote from Madueke that is worth thinking about. When asked whether he imagined the season could be this good at Arsenal, his answer was immediate. He said, "I did. That is why I came so quickly from where I was." My analysis. The injury update is the practical piece. Madueke being available gives Arteta options in attack. But the mental piece is equally interesting. Madueke's confidence in Arsenal's project, to the point where he says he always believed in this level of success, tells you about the culture Arteta has created. Players are arriving at this club believing in what is being built. That belief matters. It shapes how a squad performs when the pressure is highest. Emmanuel Petit and the PSG overconfidence warning. TalkSport reported on comments from Emmanuel Petit, the former Arsenal player, who now gave a very interesting perspective from the French side of this story. Petit said that PSG fans in France are, in his words, too confident. He said they have the feeling that they are much better than Arsenal. He also stated that PSG has been the best team for the last 2 years. My analysis. This is a fascinating observation precisely because it comes from someone who has connections to both sides of this story. Petit played for Arsenal. He understands the club. And he is looking at the French response to this final and identifying a level of confidence in PSG's support that he considers excessive. Overconfidence in a final can be dangerous. History in football is full of examples of teams who went in as overwhelming favourites and came out on the wrong side. Arsenal's defence, which has conceded just 6 goals in the entire Champions League campaign this season, is a genuine deterrent. PSG fans feeling their team is much better than Arsenal does not make it so on the pitch. Declan Rice, the title, and West Ham's relegation. Now I want to bring everything together with arguably the most emotionally complex story of the past 48 hours. Declan Rice made 245 appearances for West Ham United across 7 years. He captained them to the Europa Conference League title in 2023. He left for £104 million to join Arsenal in the same year, briefly making him the most expensive player in Premier League history before Chelsea surpassed that figure with their signing of Moises Caicedo. On the final day of this Premier League season, while Rice was celebrating Arsenal's title, West Ham's fate was being decided elsewhere. The Hammers beat Leeds United 3-0, but that result was not enough. Tottenham Hotspur beat Everton 1-0 at home, and that result confirmed West Ham's relegation to the Championship for the first time since 2011. Rice was filmed in the moments after the news came through. He was throwing his arms about in frustration and shaking his head. As his Arsenal teammates celebrated around him, he could not hide his pain. He then took to Instagram and wrote directly to West Ham supporters. He said he was absolutely gutted to see West Ham relegated. He described the club as one that really does mean so much to him. He said he would not be where he is today without everything the club has done for him. And then he added something important. He said he has no doubt West Ham will be back where they belong in the Premier League in no time. He closed by saying he will be supporting them always. My analysis on this moment. What Rice showed in those raw seconds after the news came through is something that cannot be manufactured. That reaction was genuine. That was a man who loves a football club feeling real pain for them, even while standing in the middle of his own greatest triumph. The emotional intelligence required to hold both of those things at the same time, joy for what you have achieved and grief for something you care about, is not common. But here is the practical side of this story. Rice cannot carry that grief into Budapest. He has said himself that the focus is now fully on Paris Saint-Germain. He described the Champions League final as a massive opportunity. He talked about wanting the double. He said tomorrow is full focus on PSG. The capacity to channel emotion into performance is one of the defining characteristics of great players in great moments. Rice has shown throughout his Arsenal career that he has that capacity. Arteta will be counting on him to deliver it again on Saturday. The situation at West Ham is heartbreaking for everyone connected to that club. But for Rice, the next chapter of his legacy is being written in Budapest. So let me bring this all together for you. Arsenal go into Saturday's Champions League final in Budapest as Premier League champions, carrying 22 years of weight and the belief of an entire fan base on their shoulders. PSG are the holders. They are experienced in finals. Kvaratskhelia is in the form of his life. Hakimi and Dembele are pushing to be fit. And their supporters believe they are the better team. But Arsenal have conceded just 6 goals in the entire Champions League this season. Their players are emotionally invested in a way that is visible and real. Their owner is already thinking about next season. Their manager has been described by his own players and former colleagues as the architect of something genuinely historic. Patrick Vieira said winning Saturday would be the biggest achievement in Arsenal's history. Josh Kroenke said winning at the highest level is a process. Eberechi Eze said he will not get over this for a long time. Declan Rice said the focus is fully on PSG. Every signal, every quote, every piece of information coming out of the Arsenal camp points in one direction. This group of players knows exactly what is at stake, and they are ready. Saturday cannot come soon enough. That is the full picture for today. I am Melissa. This is Melissa, Arsenal analyst, and I will see you in the next one.